And so we arrive at Europe's solution, a solution that tells you everything about their desperation. They want to seize frozen Russian state assets, not because it's wise, not because it's legal, but because they cannot find the money anywhere else. It's as simple as that. They overcommitted, they miscalculated, and now they are looking for a shortcut. But inside Europe, the panic is palpable. Countries like Belgium, France, Germany, and Italy understand the danger. Confiscating sovereign assets is not a trivial move. It sets a precedent that could destabilize the international financial system. It tells every state on earth that their money is not safe in Western banks. And these governments know they will face lawsuits that could cost them hundreds of billions of dollars. The legal risk is enormous. The political risk is enormous. And still, they can't walk away from the idea, because without that money, Ukraine collapses. This is what happens when ideology overrides strategic thinking. European leaders talked themselves into believing that Russia would fold, that sanctions would crush its economy, and that the war would end quickly. Instead, Russia adapted. Its economy stabilized, its military expanded, and Europe found itself committed to a fight it cannot afford financially or politically. And now you can see the fractures everywhere. Eastern Europeans are panicking because they fear Russia will eventually turn its attention toward them. Germany is paralyzed by internal disagreements, unable to articulate a coherent long-term strategy. France talks about strategic autonomy, but it has neither the unity nor the resources to make it real. Italy and Spain are more concerned about domestic instability than geopolitics. And the European Union as an institution looks increasingly overwhelmed by a crisis it does not know how to manage. What's even more striking is how quickly public opinion is changing. Support for funding Ukraine is declining across the continent, and when public opinion shifts, politicians follow. They may not admit it openly, but behind closed doors, European leaders know they cannot sustain the level of support they promised. Meanwhile, Ukraine's situation worsens by the week. An army cannot fight on credit. A state cannot survive on political statements. Ukraine needs money, ammunition, manpower, three things Europe cannot provide at the necessary scale. And the United States, despite all the tough talk, is no longer willing to foot the bill. So Europe faces a painful truth. It tied its foreign policy to a war it cannot win and cannot pay for, and the consequences are beginning to surface. We are watching the emergence of a continent that is overstretched, internally divided, and strategically adrift. The rhetoric remains loud, but the capacity behind it is shrinking. This is where you see the limits of Western strategy. You can make bold declarations, you can pass resolutions, you can make speeches about unity, but wars are not won by speeches. They are won with industrial capacity, stable funding, and manpower. Russia has those things. Europe does not. And here is the irony. The United States encouraged Europe to take on this burden, knowing full well Europe was not equipped to handle it. Washington wanted Europe to show leadership, to contain Russia, to prove that NATO was strong and united. Instead, Europe walked into a trap of its own making. And now, rather than being the pillar of stability, it has become the weak link. This financial crisis is not a temporary problem. It is a structural failure. It exposes how fragile Europe has become and how unrealistic its strategic ambitions were. And unless something dramatically changes, which is unlikely, Europe will face a geopolitical reckoning of its own.